we're not seeing leadership now on virtually every level of governance and the body politic in this society, right? We have Republicans who are going along with whatever the president decides to do because they are afraid, right? And their cowardice is becoming manifest. And we have Democrats who can't decide what they're for, and the internal schisms in the Democratic Party prevent them from leading.
Kai, where does this podcast find you?
I am in a shed attached to my garage at home in Southern California.
Where in Southern California?
La Cañada, just sort of north of Glendale.
Yeah. I went to UCLA, so
I know.
I spent a lot of time out there. So let's bust right into it, or let's draw the camera way back. I'm curious to get your overall sense of, or big picture view of the economy. It feels increasingly difficult to distill down to any kind of summary or bullet points. It feels very split screen in that we have a stock market at record highs. According to Pam Bondi, it's $50,000.
$50,000.
Yeah.
Right.
And we do have solid GDP growth, much of it fueled by the AI boom and a disproportionate consumer spending from the wealthiest Americans. But on the other side, we're seeing what appears to be a slowing job market, affordability concerns, and consumer sentiment near historic lows, and a lot of catastrophizing about how AI could potentially destroy the labor market. How do you make sense of this? When you do your program and someone says, summarize the American economy, what is your best shot at it right now?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, very much mixed bag for all the reasons you said. I would say we're sort of in a labor market, not recession, but a labor market period of great uncertainty, right? Low hire, low fire. People aren't leaving their jobs, right? This thing called the quits rate. People aren't leaving their jobs very much anymore. It's at historic lows because they're afraid they can't get another job. That's really bad. That's not a good thing, right? The lack of opportunity and all that. At the same time, corporate America, thank you very much, is doing really well. Hence the stock market at record highs, hence all those corporate profits that are coming in. But as you know really well, income inequality in this company, the gap between the richest percent of this economy and 99.9% of the rest of the people is growing and getting bigger. And it's just not sustainable. It's not tenable.
Any thoughts on whether the AI threat to the labor pool is overhyped, underhyped?
So look, the threat of AI is real, but it comes in 17 different categories. So let's go with the first one, the labor threat, right? It's already, as we've seen, done some damage to entry-level 23, 24, 25-year-old workers and the jobs that they have, right? And I totally get that. I will say here, by the way, I'm a little bit of an AI skeptic. I think it is a bubble. The spending and the debt, the debt, first of all, is huge. The spending is really circular, right? You've got OpenAI giving, NVIDIA $1 zillion for their chips, and then that money gets circled back into the thing. And that's definitely not sustainable. AI will be the future. It's just not there yet. And I think as we look at what's going to happen to certainly white-collar jobs, that is something that people in white-collar jobs ought to be thinking about. Not for tomorrow, but for some short number of years from now, when these things are really actually workable. It's a little bit like crypto, right? Crypto will be the future of money. It is not the future of money right now. It's not actual money right now. AI will be a future of this economy, but it's not yet. It's not right now at scale.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that companies across retail and consumer goods are raising prices again this year, many by high single digits, citing tariffs, higher labor costs, and rising health insurance expenses. In terms of affordability, which obviously reduces the prosperity of Americans, do you think it's going to get worse, get better? What do you see as signals out there?
Yeah, I think it actually is going to get worse. And let's think about why for a second. What's happening here is the knock-on effect, the lagging effect of tariffs. For a long time, since Trump's tariff palooza back in April, companies by and large bit the bullet. And they absorbed a lot of the cost. Let's just say here parenthetically that there have been studies from the Fed and from Gita Gopinath at the IMF. Something between 94 and 96% of tariff costs are passed through directly to American businesses and American consumers. Businesses have been taking that hit for the past, whatever April is, 8-9 months ago, right? Now they're getting fed up with it. It's squeezing them. They can't do it anymore. And more importantly, consumers, even though, as you rightly pointed out, consumers are really cranking consumer sentiments in the toilet, we're still spending money. We're still paying whatever the companies are demanding. So we are going to see those prices tick up by sort of high-ish single digits. That will have a knock-on effect on inflation. I don't know that I buy the Fed's theory here. This is Powell and Austin Goolsbee, among others, who say it's going to be a one-time pass-through, right? Tariffs are going to hit the economy one time and then stay. I don't know that I see that. But look, Goolsbee's a trained economist. I'm not. But definitely now we're seeing companies saying, you know what, consumers, you got to pay a little bit more now. And that's what's going to start happening.
And I read somewhere that, so if you look at the Gini coefficient on income inequality, 0 meaning everybody has the exact same amount, 100 meaning one person has everything, that the French Revolution and let them eat cake happened when France was at about 81 in terms of income inequality. And there's some reports saying that the U.S. right now is at 83. Do you feel it's sort of progressive catastrophism, that there's a revolution coming because of income inequality hitting these levels, or that as America, we're sort of down with levels of this type of inequality?
Well, look, I think sadly, as history demonstrates, you go back to the Gilded Age, we are down with it. There have been corrections, of course, past in history of when that's happened, but not without a little bit of societal stress. And look, we're definitely there. I mean, forget the trillionaire or the almost trillionaires, right? But so much of the wealth in this country is now going to capital as opposed to labor. And that's just upside down from the thing that made this economy great in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Look, there were bad things about this economy back then too. I get that. But if you want solid middle-class jobs where everybody can grow and be reasonably happy and successful, this ain't it. This ain't it.
Yeah, but how do you think that manifests in terms of, is it we constantly ping from one extreme to the other, that people decide to pick up pitchforks and lanterns? Like what do you think, how does it play out in terms of, if we've reached some sort of tipping point?
The premise behind your question is, where does the leadership come from, right? How does this change happen? And the answer is that we're not seeing leadership now on virtually every level of governance and the body politic in this society, right? We have Republicans who are going along with whatever the president decides to do because they are afraid, right? And their cowardice is becoming manifest. And we have Democrats who can't decide what they're for. And the internal schisms in the Democratic Party prevent them from leading. So I don't know where the leadership, where the motivation, where the rallying cry comes from to say this cannot stand. And just empirically, it just can't. It can't. A society can't work when everybody doesn't have what the top nth percent has.
Curious, just when we talk about trying to predict where the economy's headed, we're increasingly in the media, and I consider myself media adjacent, looking at this, what appears to be the most accurate or least flawed predictor, and that is the prediction markets. And I find myself consistently quoting data from Kalshi and Polymarket. And I'm just curious what your take is on these prediction markets.
So number one, they are kind of a black box, right? Which is really, really troubling. We don't know what's in there. We don't know who are making these bets. You heard, of course, about this $400,000 bet on Maduro being ousted about 2 hours before he was, and then it paid off to some unknown bettor, right? I mean, what is that? How is that a valid statistical sample of anything? Let me give you an example really close to sort of my professional line of work. So in the days/week before Trump named Kevin Warsh to head the Federal Reserve, a guy by the name of Rick Rieder, who you may know, I'm sure you know of him, he does fixed income investment. He's the head of fixed income at BlackRock, the huge money management firm. He'd been a dark horse all along, and then somehow, for some reason, his odds on Kalshi popped up to like 62-ish something percent, and out of nowhere. And I will say, by the way, the only reason I found out about this is because I'm on a thread of emails with about 50 or 60 of my fraternity brothers. Rick Rieder was a fraternity brother of mine 45 years ago. He was a year ahead of me. We didn't really know each other, whatever. But anyway, so that's how I found out about it. And I go looking at it, and then I start looking for news. And there is no news about why Rick Rieder's somehow going to be the chairman of the Fed. And then sure as hell, Trump says, oh, no, it's going to be one of the two Kevins, Kevin Warsh. So I don't know that, yes, wisdom of the crowds and all that, and people are putting actual money on the line, but you have to take it with a really big grain of salt.
And when you think of these prediction markets, do you think that they're going to play a role in, do you think they're going to sort of become the primary data streams for traders? And my mind sort of starts spinning in terms of how this might impact hedge funds, alternative investments.
You bet. Because you will be able to lay trades with real money on virtually everything, right? Not just, what color jacket is Kamala Harris going to wear to debate, just to pick an old historical example, but also, right, what policy issues are going to be decided, where the Supreme Court might come down, all of those big, significant policy moves. And then those Kalshi markets and Polymarket and all the rest of them are going to be followed by people actually making those decisions. And you're like, what are we doing?
Support for the show comes from Pipedrive. Success in sales comes down to timing. You have to be nimble and fast on your feet. But if you're spending time chasing down leads or organizing your contact book, that's going to slow you down. And when sales slow down, the growth of your business slows down too. Luckily, there's Pipedrive to keep the sales flowing. Pipedrive is a sales CRM that is easy to set up and even easier to use. Within minutes, you can have your whole team operating from one centralized platform. You'll be able to customize your dashboard so you can see every deal in your sales pipeline. And Pipedrive can seamlessly connect to more than 500 apps from their marketplace and slot them right into your company's workflow. It's a super customizable sales CRM that can easily scale with your business. A new year calls for a new CRM. If you're starting a business or working in sales, check them out, because over 100,000 companies are already using Pipedrive to grow their business. Right now, if you use our link, pipedrive.com/ProfG, you'll get a 30-day free trial. No credit card or payment needed. Support for the show comes from Vanguard. The role of financial advisor is to do everything you can to set your clients up for success. There are plenty of ways you can go about it. Maybe a leveling up of your fixed income strategy, but bonds can be tricky. The market is huge, rates shift, and risks hide in plain sight. That's why having a partner with scale and expertise matters. Vanguard brings both. Vanguard bonds are institutional quality. Institutional quality isn't a tagline, it's a commitment to your clients. It means top-grade products across the board. The lineup includes over 80 bond funds that are actively managed by a 200-person global squad of sector specialists, analysts, and traders. A lot of firms love to highlight their star portfolio managers, like it's all about that one brilliant mind making the magic happen. Vanguard's philosophy is a little different. They believe the best active strategies shouldn't be locked away with one person. They should be shared across the team. So if you're looking to give your clients consistent results year in and year out, go to see the record for yourself at vanguard.com/audio. That's vanguard.com/audio. All investing is subject to risk. Vanguard Marketing Corporation, distributor. Young people seem especially upset, or a lot of lack of confidence, consumer confidence in our institutions.
Do you blame them?
I don't, but the institutions especially, but I just read an article in The Economist saying, realistically, it's not as bad as they think. That there's still, that home ownership is down, but that their wage growth is growing. Youth unemployment is at 10%, which is about average if you go back. Do you think that there's something to social media creating sort of a negative vibe, if you will, that makes a bad situation even worse?
Yeah, look, social media is a double-edged sword, and that's and that's putting it kindly. But look, let's not talk about young people. Let's not talk about 25-year-olds, just to pick a demographic, today. Let's think about the future that they're looking at, which is, we've already talked about income inequality. The politics of this country are ruptured at best, completely broken at worst. There's no national ambition, national aim. You and I have talked about this before, about what young people need and value in this society and what can help them get there. And national service, I think, is a common interest that you and I both have, right? There is none of that shared experience. in America today. And so if you're a 25-year-old looking at the future, and look, I should ask my own kids, but what do you see? Are you hopeful? Are you ever going to own a house? How are you going to build wealth? What about your kids in the college application process? And look, I know higher education is a thing for you, and it's deeply, deeply broken. So it's not 25-year-olds today. It's 25-year-olds thinking about, well, as much as 25-year-olds ever do, thinking about when they're 50.
Yeah, I was thinking about, if you're 21, it means since the age of 10, the dominant political role model has been Trump. And so you during the years where your brain is getting hardwired around incentives and role models, you have someone who is about kind of performative coarseness, virality, all about money,
No shame, right? Zero shame,
double
zero sense of
down.
common purpose. You bet.
A lie is less of a lie the more you repeat it. I mean, it just feels as if, one of the many things I really respect about you, 8 years in the Navy, it feels like it's so the way he acquits himself personally is such an oxymoron or so anathema to the basic code of military service. I don't know if you speak to young men and women, service people in the Navy, how do they feel about Trump and our politics right now?
I don't. It's been a while since I've talked to those folks, but I will tell you that it's not the young people actually in the military. I mean, yes, it is, right? They do the work, the hard work, whether it's a young enlisted sailor, on an aircraft carrier someplace or on a base someplace. But really, the people that I worry about and who I put the responsibility on are the senior officers, the flag officers, the general officers, who know better, who are obliged by their oath and by the Constitution not to do some of the things the president's asking them to do. And I'm looking now at the American Navy admiral who resigned out of Southern Command over these fishing boat strikes, right? Those are the ones who, the video of the 6 national security experts and veterans in Congress who made that tape that the grand jury just said, no, we're not going to indict you for this. They're not talking to the enlisted Marine, right? They're talking to the Marine colonel. They're talking to the Navy admiral about illegal orders and knowing where that line is. I am, and I'll just go off topic a little bit. I am the absolute cowardice and fear with which the American military is being run now by the Secretary of Defense is to me just, it's incredibly damaging. And his behavior and his ethos and what he thinks the American military stands for is so deeply destructive and corrosive.
Going to young people in the military, we talk a lot about trying to find a code, trying to find something to do. A lot of young men lost. Talk about the armed services and the role it can play in a young person's life in terms of giving them a code. I knew when I was downstairs, I'm in Europe right now on a ski holiday with my family, and when my producer called me and said, "You're up with Kai Ryssdal at 6," when I heard Kai Ryssdal at 6, I thought, if I don't get there at 5:59, I'll be late, because this guy is just on time. Talk about, and I'm curious if you've talked about this with your own kids, but talk about military service as it relates to helping young people establish a code, if you will.
Well, look, let me give you the personal example. I'm a 62-year-old man. I left the military when I was 29. It defines me. My service defines me to this day. It is an obligation to something bigger than yourself. It is a sense of duty. It is a way you conduct yourself, and it's a way that you interact with others. It's respect up and down the chain of command. It is loyalty, and it is mission first. That said, military is not for everybody, and I get that. But I firmly believe that some kind of national service at this point in our history and at this point right now in society is a valuable thing. You're not going to find a code in the military, you're not going to find honor and obligation and duty. But if you have a sense of it, it will refine it and it will sharpen it and it will distill it to a way that helps you live your life.
As someone who served, I was just I'm curious to get your thoughts. I'm fascinated by the military and its operational capabilities. The operation in Venezuela, I just couldn't. I literally thought this is something out of a Bond film. Do you have? I mean, my sense is almost every branch of the military was involved here. What were your thoughts when you heard about this operation and how it was pulled off?
Look, it's really impressive, and it is something fundamentally that only the American military can do, right? That's just the way it is. You look at the Russians, you look at the Europeans. I mean, nobody has the capability we do. Nobody has the professionalism we do, and nobody has the technology that we do. Now, look, you can buy technology and you can buy capability to some degree. What you can't buy, and what is, to get back to my prior point about the Secretary of Defense, what is being destroyed by the way he is running that department, and by the way the president is letting him run that department, is the professionalism of the American military, both the enlisted ranks and the officer rank. It was an amazing military operation. It was great, but you can't, like, there was a story today about Hegseth denying a promotion to a guy who used to be the spokesman for Mark Milley, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during Trump's first term and then for a little while afterward, and who Trump has said ought to be executed. And this guy, because he had worked for Milley, career Army officer, up for promotion to Brigadier General, because he had worked for Milley, the reporting is, Hegseth said, nope, I'm going to fire you. And he basically slow-rolled his nomination to Brigadier General until the guy said, you know what? I'm not going to hold up the promotion of all of my fellow colonels to general, so I'm going to retire. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. It's operating from a position of fear and weakness. And it, to me, it's one of the most discouraging things, actually, about the second Trump administration.
I'm curious, you said you left the service at 29, and I'm sure you know people who decided to spend the next 1 or 2 decades in the service. How would you distinguish the difference between the people who serve, as you did, for several years versus those who decide to make it their career?
Yeah, so I think about this every now and then, actually. If I'd stayed, well, I'd probably be retired by now. But, I could have been like a 2-star, maybe a 3-star. I'm a reasonably competent guy. Look, the military was, for me, an amazing thing that I did when I was 21, 22 years old. It was not, though, as it was for some of the guys in my squadron, right? I was flying E-2Cs out of Norfolk, Virginia, off the USS Theodore Roosevelt. For some of the guys in my squadron, that was their whole gig. That was all they wanted to do. That was it for them. And for me, it was an opportunity to, number one, serve, right, which was really important to me, but also to refine and help define my character. And then by the time I left the Navy, I had done everything that I joined the Navy to do, right? I had seen the world. I had gone to graduate school. I had learned how to fly, all that stuff. And it was time to do something else. And obviously, most veterans out there are like me. They've done a tour, 4 years. They've done maybe 8 years. There aren't, most people don't stick for 20 years in the military or 25. But I would bet the value judgment coming out is the same after 4 years or 20 years. This was an experience that helped define my life. And look, there are many, many terrible things. I know I'm caveating a lot of things here, but there are some not great things about, number one, the American military, but number two, about the lifestyle and the challenges that it creates for families and for young people. I mean, the idea that we have American enlisted people on food stamps is insane and embarrassing. But it is, no matter how you slice it, a definitional moment.
So trying to collide your experience in the Navy with a one-man prediction market, Ryssdal, when you see or hear about the movements of carrier strike forces into the Mediterranean and in and around Iran, what's your best guess as to what's going to happen there?
Oh, man. Number one, I have no idea because the president of the United States is a chaos agent, and trying to predict him is a fool's errand. Number two is, look, this is part of what these carry movements are is a show of force, and we can do this. And that is literally what carrier strike forces are for, right? Number one, projection of power, sure. But number two, showing the flag, showing that we can if we want to. The challenge, of course, again, to go back to point number one, is that the president of the United States is a chaos agent and you don't know what he's going to do. So I don't think you can put a lot of stock in the mere movement, right? Maybe negotiating, maybe we're not. Steve Witkoff is doing this, Jared Kushner's doing that, who knows? But it's that the mere movement of a carrier strike force is a tried and true presidential tactic. Lots of people have done it.
Support for the show comes from Wix. If you're a business owner, you're an ideas person. So brainstorming what you want your website to look like is way easier than executing on it. Wix changes that. With Wix's new Harmony editor, building a polished website for your business is almost as easy as thinking aloud. It's a new way to create websites. Wix Harmony offers the perfect blend of AI and precise drag-and-drop tools. You can launch a professional-grade website by entering a single prompt, and you can find your flow between prompting your AI agent and their manual design tools to shape every detail of your site. You have built-in solutions for every type of business, from e-commerce to services. Enjoy easy, fuss-free domain registration, web hosting included. And you can rest easy knowing that your Wix site is backed by 99.99% uptime and enterprise-grade security with no add-ons required. 280 million businesses around the world rely on Wix for their websites because with Wix, you can own your individuality, create freely, and scale fearlessly. Ready to create your website? Go to wix.com/harmony. That's wix.com/harmony. So, and I think I mentioned this at the opening, when we get guests, and we've had very famous people to not so famous people, we have a sense for how they're going to do. And occasionally someone surprises us to the upside and the downside. And we knew you'd do well, but you're one of our most downloaded guests in the history of this podcast. And so we thought we would come up with a series of questions from people who want to know more about Kai or get inside his brain. And so I'll kick it off before we go to these listener questions. I'm curious, where do you invest your money?
I have zero control over the money in my household for two reasons. Number one, my wife is the brains in the family. She's deeply interested in investing. She takes great care with it, and she's good at it. And fundamentally, it just doesn't interest me that much at all. That's number one. Number two, though, and more substantively, I should not, given the platform that I have and the subject matter of that platform, I should not know where I'm invested. I should not have even a hint of an interest in a story we do about Amazon or NVIDIA or take your pick publicly traded company. So it drives my wife nuts at times. But I stay as far away from that as I reasonably can.
What would you advise your kid? One of your kids says, "Dad, I got $10,000. Where should I invest?" What would you say?
You should talk to your mother.
Talk to your mother. Oh, come on.
No, that is absolutely what I say. My mother is, so look, my kids are bright, ambitious, and they're doing really well in life, the older ones. But I'm not the guy. I couldn't tell you. My wife could tell you.
All right. This is unusual, Kai. We got a surprising number of beer questions. It's an all-time favorite beer.
Well, look, so the OG is a Stone IPA from Stone Breweries down in San Diego, down by a Japanese brewery. These days it's hit or miss. I don't drink as much as I used to, but now it's a hazy IPA, a good solid hazy IPA, and I'm in there.
Give us your weekend. Give us Kai Ryssdal's weekend. How do you spend your time?
So let's see. I am a high school and college soccer referee. I do a lot of soccer for kids as well. So sometimes I'll spend 4 or 5 hours doing a soccer game. I'll get a workout. There is always stuff to do around the house. Our house is 113 years old, so everything needs to be done.
So you're handy?
I am handy by virtue of owning a home for 25 years,
Well,
right? You have
I
to
own
be.
several homes, and I'm not handy, so you're not giving yourself enough credit. You're
All right.
good. You know how to fix shit.
I know what tools to buy. And then I hang around with my wife. We're empty nesters now. We go for long walks. We'll pick up a movie. We'll go out to dinner. We just kind of hang around.
So a few people mentioned in our requests for the voicemails we've gotten on Instagram that you've been MIA from Marketplace. What's going on?
So let's see. Number one, I got sick, so I took a couple of days off. Then I was on a trip to a conference in Prague. It was a bang bang in and out to Europe, which I do not recommend. And then I was off yesterday for the holiday, and I'm off today because I have a high school playoff game at 3:00, which conflicts with me actually being on the radio.
And why do you enjoy coaching, or I'm sorry, refereeing soccer? Like what?
Couple of reasons. Number one, it's the sport I played growing up. More substantively, though, I enjoy the challenge of having to make split-second decisions when your heart rate is 160. When you're trying to keep up with kids who are like 18 years old, it is, and this is not my phrase, it's a phrase I heard on a soccer podcast. It's a high-speed leadership test, while at the same time, you as the referee have to be the calmest guy on the field. And I find that really like intellectually stimulating. The other thing is, so I run in the mornings up in the hills behind my house, and it's my time of day to just disconnect and let my brain go wherever it's going to go. There's a corollary when you're on a soccer field in that you can't be thinking about anything else, whether it's got to get the car fixed, what am I having for dinner, that moron at work. You have to be there in that moment for the 22 players on the field. Otherwise, you're going to fuck it up and you're going to look like an idiot and you're going to change the match. And that's terrible.
So I'm going to inject a few of my own questions. Likelihood Governor Newsom, the president of the fourth largest economy in the world, your state, is the Democratic nominee for president.
Ooh. I thought you were going to say whether he's going to run. Obviously, it's 101% chance that he's going to run. I think it's like 50-50 he gets the nomination. Saying that without knowing who else is going to... Well,
that's high.
I think it is a coin toss, right? Because it depends on who else is in the field. Whitmer, Buttigieg, Shapiro. I don't know. I mean, Newsom's almost too perfect, right? He's got the look, he's got the smile, he's got the hair, all of that jazz. But coming from California is a big, big swing.
Do you think it's becoming less of a liability? My sense is that at least the portions of California that everyone seems to be obsessed with, specifically San Francisco, are having a bit of a renaissance. Do you think it's going to be the same liability?
San Francisco was unfairly slighted. Things were bad, right? There were really big problems. But the rule of thumb is nothing is ever as bad or as good as you think it is. San Francisco had some problems. LA has had some problems. But generally speaking, I think San Francisco is doing pretty well right now. None of that is due to anything that Newsom's doing. Same thing with Los Angeles. But you can't talk about California now as if it's a failed state.
What was the big moment in your career that was there an inflection point where things really started to take off for you?
Oh, yeah. So there were two. One was getting into radio in the first place. And I'll give you the very short version of a very long story. But my wife was was about to start her MBA program and up in the Bay Area. And I was 34 years old. We were freshly married. We were thinking about starting a family. And I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I had done 8 years in the military, 4 years in the Foreign Service. And she sat me down one day and she said, look, I think you ought to try journalism because you're this freak who gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning to figure out what's going on. You get the New York Times first thing off the doorstep. That shows you how long ago this was. And long story short, I applied for and got an internship at KQED, which is the public radio station up in San Francisco. And so the very first day of our internship, there were 5 of us around the second floor conference table. 4 of them were 19, and I was 34. But KQED taught me everything I need to know about radio and being on the air. And so I did that for a couple of years. And then the guy who used to run Marketplace heard me, and they were looking for a person to host their overnight program. It airs at 2:50 in the morning LA time to get the East Coast drive time. So obviously it's, you work midnight to noon basically. And he heard me on a report up at KQED, and he called me. And again, very long story short, I started there in 2001 working the overnights. And that was 25 years ago, and here I am 25 years later. So those were the two moments, really.
I kind of grew up with your voice when I was a little bit older, but when I was younger, my first job out of school was Morgan Stanley, and I was living with my mother, and I drove from Westwood to downtown to Figueroa Street, and there was a voice of, I don't know, was it KQED or KCRW? I forget which the LA
Must have been
station was.
KCRW.
KCRW. And there was a voice similar to your voice, this great voice that sort of reeked of credibility, who hosted in the mornings. And I listened for 2 years, and I thought, and I had never done this before. I wasn't a philanthropic person. I thought I should probably give up 50 or $100, and I didn't know how to do it. So I called, and a lesson in how scrappy KCRW was, the host answered the phone.
Yeah, that was back. That was back in the day, man. That was back in the day.
It was like, okay, this literally feels like a guy and a producer and tens of thousands of people listening to this person driving downtown. So when I think of public radio, I think of a little bit, depending on the generosity of strangers. And then I can't help but bridge to, Republican billionaires buy football teams, Democratic billionaires buy media companies. We had one, I don't know if he's Democrat, I don't know what his politics are, but we had a billionaire, Jeff Bezos, buy the Washington Post. What are your thoughts on how the Post has played out and Bezos' role in it?
It's a travesty. It's a travesty. You have to give him credit, though, for the first look. He bought it in 2013, really invested, expanded the newsroom, and then comes that spiking of the Kamala Harris endorsement by the now former publisher Will Lewis, almost certainly at Bezos's behest. I don't think Lewis does that by himself, and then it all goes downhill from there. And look, Lewis and Bezos, because he owns the thing, were not able to capitalize on the changes in the news environment, right? They weren't able to adjust and flow with the times, much as many other media organizations, including some in public radio, have not been able to do. And then the cut started, and Lewis lost credibility, and the newsroom shrank. And now you've just seen, 3 weeks ago, 300 more people out the door. It is absolutely a travesty that they haven't been able to figure this out, that Bezos has allowed to happen what he has allowed to happen. It's a loss for, number one, the people of that area, right? Because the Washington Post is first and foremost a regional newspaper. They do incredible national work, but they're the regional paper in a really influential and significant market. And then just for what it says about journalism and how we are now at the whims, look at the LA Times and Patrick Soon-Shiong. We're at the whim of incredibly wealthy people, and it's no way to run a democracy.
If an incredibly wealthy person came to you and said, Kai, I want to buy a media property that you think is underleveraged, and I want you to run it, what would you want to buy?
Well, first of all, I would say you don't want me running anything. There's a reason I'm talent and not management. So look, I would probably try to put together some consortium of the big public radio stations. I would take WNYC, I would take WBEZ in Chicago, I would take KQED, I would take KPCC here in Los Angeles, and then maybe two in the South, maybe in Dallas and in Atlanta, and try to form some consortium and change the organizational structure. Look, I love public radio. It has given me everything in my professional life the last 25 years. But the way it is run and the tensions between the local, and this is very inside baseball, so feel free to cut this out, Jennifer, if you want to. The way the command structure works between the local stations and the national management is it's a recipe for disaster. So that would be my whack, right? Because I think it is truly an underleveraged asset, both in terms of its financial abilities, right? We have tens and tens and tens and millions of listeners, but also in its structure.
And what's wrong with the structure? Why is it so dysfunctional?
So the problem is that we are built on a network of member stations. Marketplace is not a NPR program. If you're listening to this and you want to write to me about the actual structure of Marketplace and APM, go ahead and do that. But I'll speak about public radio. We are built on a network of stations across the country, hundreds and hundreds of them. They pay, number one, carriage fees, and then also program fees up the chain so that public radio program providers, American Public Media, my employer, NPR, others, can produce those programs and then send them down the chain. The catch is that those stations rightly want a vote in the running of the larger organization. And the tension is, are you responsible in your management of this entire structure? Are you responsible for the national strategy, or are you responsible for what the station in Sheboygan wants, or the station in Charlotte, North Carolina wants? And that is the tension between the stations and the national strategy. And it's really, really hard, and I get it. And it's a 50, 60-year organizational structure that has been cemented now, and changing it would be really, really hard. But if I had $1 gazillion, that's where I would put my money.
And the revenue model, I don't know how it breaks down. Who funds it? Where does it get its funding from?
So as we all know, the federal government no longer supports public media. And I will say, and this may brand me something of a heretic, and maybe I'll get in trouble, I don't know. I think that's a good thing.
I agree. I don't think it was worth it.
I think it was a terrible, terrible sequence of events that got public media hooked on federal financing. I think if LBJ, in the Public Broadcasting Act of 67, whatever it was, had said, here's $10 million in 1967 money, here's your seed money, go forth, build, but that's it, right? Then we wouldn't be in the place we are now, where small stations and some big ones are in real financial challenge because they don't have federal funding coming in anymore. This is way down the rabbit hole, right? Now what's happened is that we're without that money and we're scrambling. And so the big program providers are having to subsidize smaller stations and organizations so that they can keep carrying Marketplace and All Things Considered and all the other national programs. So that's actually the real funding challenge. Then, of course, we have advertising. We call it underwriting on public radio because we have to be cute about that. It makes me crazy. And then we have philanthropy, both people and philanthropic groups who give us grants. And in theory, it's a really nice triad, right? That we have ads, we have large philanthropy, and then we have listeners. But we need to scale it better than we have.
Last question as we wrap up here, Kai. What do you think of economic strikes?
Of economic strikes? Like general strikes?
This is a loaded question because obviously I'm involved in one, but national economic strikes is a mean of trying to dictate policy.
Look, the best lever consumers have in this economy is to not consume, right?
Can you repeat that?
I'm preaching to the choir here, right? And I've watched with interest your what is it? Unsubscribe and resist.
Resist and unsubscribe.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting that that's where you've gone, just as a guy with your history and your skill at capitalism. But I also think it's an object lesson. The most significant thing we can do is withhold our money. And that's the way you get people's attention. That's the way you get the CEO's attention. That's the way you get the regional attention. That's the way you get your supermarkets. That's the way you get it.
The most significant thing we can do is withhold our money. Kai Ryssdal is a genius. This is a man with a Brad Pitt-like voice who has incredible insight. He's also the host and editor of the public media program Marketplace, the nation's most listened to show on business and the economy, the most listened to show on business and the economy. He joins us from his home, or a shed behind his home in Los Angeles, California. Kai Ryssdal, one of our most popular guests. Very much appreciate your time today.
Always great to be on, Scott. I appreciate you.